The Celts, the Vikings, the Picts, the Gauls, the Druids, all absolutely legendary groups from Western Europe, all who have left a substantial mark on history. And something all of them had in common was their folklore and cultural reverence for sacred trees. Have you ever wondered what is the difference between the Celtic Tree of Life and Yggdrasil from Norse mythology? Are they the same thing, just seen through the eyes of different cultures? Are they vastly different? Or is there some long-forgotten connection between the two? One that tells us something deeper about these cultures and the long-faded history of these ancient tribes. Grab yourself a drink, grab a seat. I've got a story for you. In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is not just a tree, it is the cosmic center of all of the stories and dramas and characters of the historical and mythological centers of Scandinavian mythology and history, almost literally etching its runes into time itself. Now, even though it is an incredibly important central figure in Norse myth, we don't actually get that much information about Yggdrasil itself. As a matter of fact, there are only a handful of references to Yggdrasil between the prose and poetic Eddas. And if you are not aware of what the prose and poetic Eddas are, they are the Elder and Younger Eddas, which are the entirety of where we get most of Norse mythology from. One was compiled by Snorri Sturluson, is widely considered to be the go-to information for Norse mythology. And then another is a later compiled set of older documents that is referred to as the Poetic Edda. But out of all of these, the most rich description that we get comes to us from the Poetic Edda, from a poem called the Volspa. And it is in this poem that Osiris recounts the role of Yggdrasil in the whole of the cosmos, as well as the events that will eventually lead to Ragnarok, which is the end of the world in Norse mythology. It is the final days, the apocalypse, if you will. While it is often described as an ash tree, it is widely considered to be a formation that grew in the cosmos known as Ginnungagap, which is the ancient void before time was time. And after the formation of this tree, there grew realms like jewels or fruit hanging from its branches and collecting around its roots. So not simply a tree, but a literal and figurative depiction of the entirety of the Norse cosmos, with its branches and roots binding together all of the gods, the mortal men, and all realms of existence, whether that is the afterlife, heaven, hell, or Midgard, which is where the men would be. And from the epic north, we take a journey downward to a symbol that is revered in a myriad of cultures, not least of which are the mystical forests of the ancient Celts, where a symbol very similar to Yggdrasil is called the Tree of Life. Or in Irish Gaeilge, it would be Cran Beha. And similarly to Yggdrasil, it is not necessarily just a tree, but it is not a representation of the cosmos. Instead, the Celts saw it as more of a guardian and possibly even an early ancestor. And if that particular topic interests you, I have a whole story on it that will be linked above and below, that explains how the ancestors of the ancient Celts were seen to be those that dwelled most prominently in the forests. Trees, especially the great trees, were seen not only as trees but also sources of wisdom, as it was believed that they could remember, see, and record everything that happened around them. And in this same way, they were also considered to be portals into other worlds, which is why in many of the Celtic cultures, forests were feared and revered because you could walk into one and never come out, and often it was believed that was because you got spirited away within the forest. Now, we all know it's more likely that people just got lost and or eaten, but I prefer the whimsical side of it myself. And this reverence amongst the Celts is very deeply reflected in both of their art and in the oral traditions, as well as in their alphabet, which is named for and structured after trees, and that is called Or. But Celtic and Norse cultures are not the only ones that hold these beliefs around sacred trees. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life in Jewish mysticism was seen as a way to proceed on a path of enlightenment, and that is illustrated in texts like Zohar, while in Buddhism there was the Bodhi tree underneath which Buddha found enlightenment. So even though the Celtic Tree of Life and Yggdrasil grow from different cultural soils, they share a very common root: the universal human desire to understand our place in the universe, where we have always known that all life was interconnected, but never had a solid grasp on how or why. And as I mentioned a bit ago, trees across all cultures have often been revered as symbols of fortitude, strength, wisdom, and endurement, as well as in many ways representing the interconnectedness of life itself, as a forest is probably the best example we have of what an ecosystem looks like. At least one that is directly observable. Obviously, we also have things like oceans and lakes, but I don't know if you are able to, but I certainly cannot breathe underwater. But I can breathe beneath a birch tree. These great titans, they stand as silent sentinels watching over us, centuries at the edge of our world, bearing witness to our histories and our stories, bridging heaven and earth. In the tales of both Yggdrasil and the Celtic Tree of Life, we find ancient echoes of our ancestors' attempts and quests to understand the great mysteries of life. And even to this very day, these trees continue to spread their branches, like behind me, over our collective imaginations. So all of this discussion of ancient trees and what they symbolize brings a question to the mind. You, dear patron of the tavern, what ancient symbols and stories captivate you? Let me know. And until the next time I see you here in the tavern, stay bloodthirsty, my friends, and remember, all hail the black dragons. I'll see you next time.